Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Today we're going to be talking about books and movies, more specifically books that I've read that I think would be great movies. Okay, firstly, it's not necessarily good books that I'm presenting here, or great 5-star reads. Some of these books, according to a lot of people, are probably pretty average, but that's not the point here. It's how well these books could translate into the film medium. And I think it's all about the plots, the characters, the setting, and how well that will translate. I also looked up all of these books to see if films or TV shows that were really being made about them. I didn't find anything except for one book, which we'll get to later, that I'm a little bit concerned about, but until then, enjoy. Okay everyone, before we go on, I've got a couple of special mentions. This is not so much pure horror, but rather kind of a dark fantasy, has a bit of a coming of age vibe, and that is two stories. First of all, Shadowland, this book that I actually got yesterday from my book haul by Straub, which is two boys who get apprenticed by a magician who lives in this kind of dark woodland area. It's been a long time since I've read it, but there's magic involved, it's exciting, it's terrifying. I think it would make a stunning movie, as I think most coming of age novels would be very, very good movies. And that comes to also McCammon's Boy's Life. Now this is magical. This could be almost as good as, if done in the right way, I think it could be almost as good as The Body by Stephen King. Stand By Me. This is just the most stunning coming of age story, Boy's Life. This book really has everything about death, innocence, murder. It's really one of the most beautifully written stories. It is simply gorgeous and at the same time terrifying. I just think it would translate so beautifully into film, and just everything about it is special. I think in my Goodreads review I said that it is a little bit like It by Stephen King, but without Pennywise the Clown or with supernatural elements, but it is just so brilliantly told. And it's about a boy and his father, so there's not a whole range of different kids involved, but man, this would make a stunning, stunning movie. First off, we have The Elementals by Michael McDowell. Now this is a southern gothic terrifying tale about 3 homes, Victoria homes, holiday homes, set in the deep south on the coast, and one of them is deserted with sand encroaching, and the other 2 are occupied by 2 very strange families. Now I think this will translate very well because of its unsettling mood and gothic atmosphere. And even though it's sun and sand and waves and sand dunes, this story is a slow burning, terrifying tale. And the family is kind of weird, and I think some of the details of the characters might have to be changed, because there's a bit of a sort of hint at incestuous family stuff going on that wouldn't fit well in the film. But the characters are interesting, and the book builds up to a terrifying climax. This is supernatural creatures, supernatural beings that I think would translate very well into film. Okay, I think some of you might be a little bit unimpressed by this next offering, and that is Funland by Laymon. It's not a particularly good book. I enjoyed it, mainly for the storyline. It is about a deserted funhouse in a once popular little town that's now crime-ridden, and it's overrun by hobos and the homeless. And it is pretty Layman-like, un-PC-like, not very politically correct, and I think that maybe is why so many people have avoided Layman's works as a movie adaptation. He almost sometimes speaks like a horny little 16-year-old with all the sexual innuendos, and in this case with the hobos. And it's fun, but it's violent and it's gory and it's a crazy story. But I think it could, in the right hands, and maybe with some of the stuff changed a bit, it could turn into a very good film. I mean, think about the setting, an abandoned funhouse where strange things are happening. This town, these characters that are some very likable, some unlikable, weird, eccentric, and everything in between. Think about the story that is fast-paced and moves to an excellent climax. I think it could be made into an excellent horror film. Okay everyone, next we have a novel called Haunted by Palahniuk. I have no idea how to pronounce his name, sorry. Here we go. And check out inside the cover. This is a sick, twisted, depraved tale. I found it kind of disturbing, very gross, and I still think it could make a good horror movie, or rather a horror series, because it consists of short stories, and all these people are invited into this retreat, which turns out to be an old theatre, and they are telling their tales in the theatre that is locked up, and food is running out and resources are running out, and each tale becomes more and more crazy, and it's almost like an experiment. It's a social experiment. But I think maybe some of the tales might be a little bit much. There's one story in particular called Guts, which is horrendously sick, that I don't think would translate to film unless it is changed drastically. But this could make a very good, maybe a mini-series or a TV series with little bits in between. Okay, next up we have Ghoul by Michael Slade. Now I'm very surprised that more of Michael Slade's XXX series had not been made into a movie. I think Headhunter was perhaps one. I'm not sure if they followed through with it, but Ghoul would make an excellent kind of Silence of the Lambs, maybe a little bit more intricate movie. It is horrifying. It has so many twists and so many characters and so many plot threads. The actual serial killer aspect of it is truly gruesome. Oh, this could be an excellent horror movie. There are scenes under the sewers of London, the settings all over the place, like not just in London, I think in America or Canada. There's mounted police task force trying to track down the killer. There's a house with secrets. There's a Lovecraftian kind of thing as well. I have spoken about this book, and all of that could translate very well onto the screen. And I'm very surprised people have not made a movie about this yet. And other books by Michael Slade, because seriously, he's a talented author. That is cool. Okay, next we have a short story called The Last Feast of Harlequin by Thomas Ligotti. You'll find that it's a short story in his Grim Scribe, and it is about an anthropologist who researches clowns in different cultures. And he goes to this village because he knows that there's going to be a clown festival, apparently. And he is curious and he wants to know what this is all about. Now, this could very easily be kind of almost a modern day Night of the Living Dead, or one of those serious, creepy zombie movies. Because these clowns are not clowns that you and me think of. These clowns are empty vessels. And this is a terrifying story. Very Lovecraftian. It's a nod to Lovecraft. And these clowns basically, you have to read the story to see what I'm talking about. And it does build up to a climax. So there's a progressive storyline. And I think sometimes short stories can make brilliant movies, because it gives a screenwriter a little bit of leeway in developing the plot, developing the world, and that kind of thing. And this is seriously a creepy Lovecraftian tale. And now I've come to think about it, there are a lot of Lovecraft movies out there that just aren't that great and could really use a reworking to come up to terms with modern standards. I would love to see things like The Colour Out of Space, and I can't think of other work off the bat, but yeah, Grim Scribe. Next we have Hard Shot Checkbox by Joe Hill. This is another novel that I've lost, that I don't own anymore. It's about a retired heavy metal rocker, or death metal rocker, who is not a very good human being. It's kind of despicable, but his hobby is to collect the grotesque things that he finds online, like a hangman's noose or whatever. He finds all these weird and wonderful things, and he decides that he wants to purchase this dead man's suit that comes to him online. It comes to him in the shape of a hard Checkbox, black box. Now, when it's opened up, this thing is haunted, and it comes to life, and he is haunted everywhere he goes. He sees this terrible figure. Now this, I don't understand why this has not been made into a movie yet. It seriously is a highway to hell kind of movie. Death, sex and rock and roll. It's just really, really, really a serious trip. And I don't understand. I mean, I know that Joe Hill's Horns was made into a movie with Daniel Radcliffe. I didn't care for that very much. I would love to see Nosferatu. I know there's a miniseries, but I'd love to see that as a movie. But really, the fact that Hard Checkbox, which is his first novel, and he's a son of Stephen King, obviously, the fact that it had not been made into film yet actually shocks me. Yeah, that is Hard Checkbox. Okay, next we have another little short novella, The Long Walk by Richard Bachmann, aka Stephen King. Now I think this would be quite difficult to translate into film. It's very short, and it really is just a marathon without a finish line of these teenage boys. The winner gets everything he could possibly want out of life. Everyone else dies. If you slow down to below a certain speed, you get warnings. You get 2 warnings, and then you get shot. Now, I could see this being almost a more messed up version of, like, let's say, the Hunger Games. I could see that maybe a screenwriter could concentrate on the characters and maybe flashbacks with the characters. So I think it could be done, but this would be one of the more difficult things to turn into film. But man, I'd love to see it. I think it would be a pretty messed up movie. That is A Long Walk. Okay, next up we have a book that I've already discussed on my YA video, and that is incredibly awesome, The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. Now, I have heard this is being made into a movie, but it is being made by Disney. And what really concerns me, 2 things concern me. Number 1, there are dark themes in this book. And if you look at Coraline and the way Coraline was adapted, it was perfect. Disney, I'm not so sure, are going to keep these things. And I think it is essential, especially for adult viewers who love the story, to have that sense of darkness, that sense of dread, and some of the more scary scenes in the book, particularly the killer that is in the background that is hunting this boy. Just quickly, for those of you that can't remember what I said about it, it is a boy that is being raised by ghosts. His whole family was massacred. He's being raised by ghosts in his graveyard, and he's the person who looks after him is a vampire, and it is just so rich thematically, the imagery, the imagination, but it is also scary. And that's why the fact that Disney is doing this movie worries me a lot. And secondly, Neil Gaiman is not having anything to do with this movie, so he doesn't have any input, which is even more concerning. So I really hope they get this movie right. I don't understand why the same people that did Coraline are not doing this movie. I find that kind of sad, because this hopefully could be made into an absolute classic, but we'll have to wait and see about that. So many Clive Barker horror novels and novellas and short stories have been translated into film. Some of them successfully, but most, in my opinion, not so much. And I find it very interesting that none of these big, epic, dark fantasy horrors, like Weaveworld, look at this cover, have not even been attempted. I can kind of understand why. It is massive in scope. It is about a magical land, a magical world inside the carpet, this magic carpet that is being threatened with extinction. They've basically been hiding away in this carpet, and it is filled of fantastical creatures. I'm not going to go in depth about the story. I'd like you to read I'm actually going to do a review on this book, and I'd like you to look at my Goodreads review as well. This is probably in my top 3 books of all time. I would love to see it being made into a movie, but I think perhaps it is an impossible dream. Along with the Magica, the Great and Secret Show, they are so large in scope, worlds within worlds, and his imagination is on full force in these novels, and if it is done well, it could be magnificent. But I think something that worries me about trying to adapt a book like this is, in the wrong hands, it could be tragic, and they could mess up the characters, they could mess up the whole story, try and change things too much in order to fit into kind of a film mode, and I wouldn't want that. I think about something like The Dark Tower. That's my favourite fantasy stroke horror stroke everything series of all time, and the movie was just an abomination. So I think this and the next book that I'm going to speak about, there's a very real danger that it is just too rich, it is just too imaginative, and it's just too large in scope, with all its creatures and with its settings and worlds within worlds and the magic carpet, that it could be messed up. However, if it's done correctly, it could be absolutely beautiful. That is Weaveworld. Okay everyone, now we come to number 1, and it is my favourite horror novel of all times. It is my favourite novel of all times, and I have discussed it in a previous video, and I've given a review on Goodreads, so I won't be talking too much about it. That is Swanson by Robert McCammon. Now, what I would like to do is just talk about why this could be made into an epic movie. First of all, let's look at the setting. You've got a nuclear devastation, a post-apocalyptic setting. You've got a nuclear winter. Absolutely crazy setting that I think CGI, and I think there's enough technology around to actually create something really breathtaking for this book and for the setting. You've got unforgettable characters, and as long as the casting agents do something properly with these characters, and you can find all these evil and amazing characters, and it could be spectacular. However, I'm a little bit worried. Look what they did to The Stand. They tried to change everything, they tried to change the order of the movie compared to the book, and for me it was a mess. I don't want to see this happening with this story. The actual story itself of good versus evil is just so epic, and it is unlike The Stand. In my opinion, better than The Stand. And in the right hands, this could be magnificent. I just hope that it gets into the right hands, and that it is made into the movie that it deserves. That is Swanson. Okay everyone, that's my video for today. Please tell me what you think. Are there any other books that you've read that could be translated into film? Any books that I've read that I made a mistake? Maybe there is a film already, I don't think so. And let me know what you think in the comments below of my choices. Thanks very much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and take care. Keep those pages turning. Cheers.